All right, I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Andrew Bennett. Wow, been through a lot with Andrew. So happy to have you on here. Your story is absolutely unbelievable. What you've been through. We've been through some shit together. So thanks for taking some time out of the day to hop on with me. I know you're a busy man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor. It's been really fun to follow your journey and um, everything you've done with this platform. So excited to be here.
Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, no doubt. Andrew and I go back 2011 probably. But
Yep.
before we get too deep into that, um, you know, obviously we had our time together in college, Misericordia University, baseball, a lot of stuff in common, but realistically from two completely different parts of the world, um, and somewhat different, I guess, not generations, but there's a little bit of an age gap between
Come
us.
on.
Just like how I always joke around with Kyle with Lindsay, I'm like, yo, six. Me and you are the same age difference
Yeah.
as Bennett.
Yeah.
But if you could just let everyone know a little bit about yourself before we dive in. He won't say it, but the only question he got wrong on his SAT was the date. So he'll joke around with him. We'll joke around with. We used to give him shit for being so smart, but
That's false. I got a lot more wrong than that. Um, but yeah, I guess so. The quick story. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. Uh,
ora.
oh yeah, don't you know? um, yeah, went to college there as well. Small school, Hamlin University, and um, had a chance to play baseball there. Uh, and then I played for a tremendous coach there, and I think he's Jason Verdugo. He's the reason that I got into coaching, um, and also the reason I had a chance to play professionally actually for a few years, although it didn't go all that well. We'll get into that I think later, but
Yes.
he really sparked the coaching bug in me, and it was my first off season of professional ball. I needed a job, so I got into substitute teaching, and that led into coaching, which eventually led me out to Misericordia, and I was a head high school coach for 2 years, and then that was sort of my first college coaching stop out there in Dallas, PA. So, um, and that was actually my longest stop as a coach. I think it was 3 years total, which is hard to believe. It feels like longer than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, the sad day when you left. That was
Yeah,
for many different reasons. Losing a friend, losing someone that was everything was left for me to do myself. But I was like, oh my gosh.
you,
But
you did it way better than I did. That's for sure. Um,
some of those years that you're ranking it on, you're like, okay, Bennett just did this. He won three conference championships. Now I can't be the first one to lose one as a GA. But you touched on a lot of shit. I don't want to skip the fact we joke around about it, but I call you one of the smartest people I've ever met. You had to make decisions of where you wanted to go to school based to play baseball or really for your academics. Were your academics were they higher than your baseball ability at that time where you probably could have gone to big time Ivy, stuff like that.
yeah, I was sort of one of those like in between D1, D3 players. I think I could have probably walked on at some Division I schools, but I look at the opportunities I had being at Hamlin, and like I wouldn't have had those anywhere. The chance to play for the professional team in the same stadium that we played in. I mean, it was just like it was a perfect fit. So, but yeah, academics were important. I actually started out in Iowa at Grinnell, and I went there for a semester. Um, Originally, actually, to play baseball and basketball. That was sort of my plan A. And it's Grinnell's a place that like people either love it or they really just don't fit. And I was in that category. It's a tremendous school. There's a lot to like about it, but it just wasn't for me. And I was homesick too. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of pressure to go away to school. And I liked being in St. Paul. It was nice. My dad and my mom could come to like pretty much every game.
Yep.
With the way our conference was. So, which I know is a big thing for you too. I mean, your parents
Oh, yeah.
drove 6-7 hours to see you play, which is just
They call them
incredible.
crazy until you have one of your own. I'm sure you'll be driving Addy
Yeah, exactly,
all over the
exactly.
country.
But no, I think to answer your question about academics, like I realized quickly that like you can get the academic experience you want anywhere almost, right? Like it's completely about what you put into it, and do you connect with the faculty, and do you go out of your way to sort of make the experience what you want, you know? And I could do that at Hamlin. I had tremendous professors. Like they took an interest in me, whether it's research projects or just, you know, after hours working on problem sets, whatever it is. Like if you make the effort, you can get a fabulous education anywhere.
Well, those extracurriculars with it to the other things you're doing outside of just your coursework, your course material.
Exactly. Yep.
What did you want when you were growing up? Did you always know what you wanted to do, what you wanted to be, or was there something that you wanted to go to school for?
No, you know, I majored in physics and math, mostly because I liked them. Like I thought they were really interesting subjects. I had zero plans at all of you know, where that could take me professionally, you know.
It all makes sense. That shit that you were always yelling at us for on the baseball field.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Numbers.
No, I mean, honestly, man, it was always just baseball. Like I just wanted to play baseball, and that's as far to the future as I could see. But you know, and I think like there was probably a part of me that knew teaching and coaching was going to be some part of my life, right? Like I always really admired teachers. I admired coaches, you know, for how hard they worked and how much passion they put into what they did, you know. So I think I always had an inkling, maybe, you know, that would be in the future.
That's a bit, I mean, and you can almost feel it, and you can just see it as the type of person people are. Like when I look at you and you said you were getting out of coaching, it was like you came into my life as a coach, and it was like, in my eyes, you were put on this planet to lead people, to coach people, to teach people. It's just the type of person you are. I'm sure you assume that now with the position and role you're at your job, where you're in charge and helping people grow. But for me, it was like, I can't picture him doing anything else because he's so fucking good at it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't think it's something that you have to work on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I feel the same way about you, man. And you know, when you know, quote, got out of coaching, I think it's like we're both probably still coaching, you know, even though I went through finance and you've got this awesome platform and everything you're doing with Fast Twitch, and it's like it's the same stuff, right? Like you're leading people, you're mentoring people, you're making a difference. Like I've been amazed because I was very insecure transitioning to the business world and the tech world. I was like, you know, I had confidence in my intelligence and my abilities, but I was like, man, am I going to know what the hell I'm doing? Like, and you know, in 5+ years of helping to build this company that I'm at now, like I've been amazed how much of the coaching skill set and everything transitions into the business world so much, right? And managing people, like it's the same stuff.
It's unbelievable. And I'm sure you go through when you're looking to hire people. I mean, you're looking at, you don't just hire athletes, and there's no bias, but you're not hiring athletes just because of their name and they played at Villanova. It's literally the experiences you go through as an athlete, as a coach, prepare you to be able to handle the situations in the business world better. And everything, using everything as a learning experience.
Yep, absolutely.
Which brings me to a point that I want to get to.
Yeah.
So boom, you play at Hamlin, you're a stud, you're middle infield, primarily shortstop or second base.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I played short for 3 years, and then as a senior, I moved to center. We had one of my best friends, Dan Kazrowski, who he moved over from second to short. He was a year younger than me, so he was a junior. But he basically like he came in as a totally unrecruited, like 130-pound guy, and just blew past everybody. Ended up getting drafted by the Diamondbacks and played in a big league spring training game. Like just an incredible player. So he basically just sort of like, it was clear he was the guy at short. And I think Coach Verdugo, our coach, he sort of knew my opportunities in pro ball would be as a utility guy, right? Like somebody who could just sort of play everywhere and fill in. So he saw me moving to center as a good opportunity for me, and he really sold me on it. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're an athlete. I mean, if you're going to dual sport at Cornell, I mean, and I've seen you play basketball, and I've seen you do a bunch of things. Pretty much to be an outfielder, you need to be able to read the ball off the bat and just be athletic. And so I don't think that's not a big issue too. But so you played at Hamlin, you were a stud, all conference, records, home runs, all this shit. Boom, you go. No, didn't get drafted, but probably had some looks, I would assume. And then, so you decided to go play indie ball. Where were you playing indie ball at the time?
So that was one of the great things about being at Hamlin is we played at the stadium for the St. Paul Saints, who as far as independent ball goes, I mean, you have like the Atlantic League, out where you are, which is probably the best league. But the American Association is like right there. It's a very, very good league. And St. Paul is like one of the best places to play. And they have actually an amazing new stadium now, which is like, I think ranked like the best minor league ballpark in the country. It's awesome, dude. It is incredible. But yeah, I mean, it's like incredible fan base. We'd have, 8,000-10,000 fans, a lot of our games. And so it's sort of like a dream. I grew up going to Saints games, and like, so I to me, I didn't view it as like, oh, it's just indie ball. It was like a chance to play for the hometown team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. Friends, family, everybody could come to the games. I just got like the biggest kick out of it. And it's a nice mix too. I think that's the other thing that's cool about indie ball is you have guys in their 30s who've been in the big leagues and they're trying to make it back. And then you have little 22-year-old shits like me, right? Yeah. Who just got out of college and never played pro ball before. So the relationships are really cool at that level.
And how long did you play indie ball?
So I played 2008. I played basically the whole year. I got released by the Saints about halfway through the year, then signed with Southern Illinois in the Frontier League, finished a year with them, and then played part of 2009. And that's really when, we talk about the yips. That's really when that sort of like set in. It was my second year.
So I think this is probably what makes you a lot of who you are and what makes you do diversity so well. So the yips, they're a real thing. So I'm sure you had aspirations to play and use indie ball as a stepping stone to get to the bigs. Walk me through what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people that go through it maybe don't like talking about it, but I actually do, and like all the gory detail, because to me, it's like you said, it's one of the most
to people what the yips are.
Yeah. So, the yips is basically, think of it as, picture something you do every day that's like so routine, it's like breathing, right? Like whatever you do in your job, it doesn't have to be athletics even. It could be anything that you do where it's like there's something you do over and over and over again and you don't even think about it. Imagine now that like that thing becomes impossible to do. Like all of a sudden your brain starts analyzing what you're doing and you are just like paralyzed and you literally can't do it. That's the best way I can explain the yips. It affects baseball players, golfers obviously have a tough time with it. Kickers in the NFL, right? That like anything where you have sort of a repetitive motion where you have to sort of think before you do it, right? Or you can think before you do it. Like I don't think like, a linebacker in football is not going to have the yips because they're just like constantly in motion, just hitting shit all the time, right? Like, so it's unique to very specific things that you do in sports. But at that time I was playing mostly second base. And my first year I did well. I was good defensively. I hit like, I don't know, 250, 260, which is it's not great, but like I was a serviceable player, at that level. And then it was in the spring of 2009, my second year. In indie ball, the spring training is not really a full spring training. It's like you show up in April and you do a few weeks of like scrimmages and stuff, and that's the whole thing. But I'll never forget, I was in the outfield playing catch and doing fine. And then one of the coaches walks up and he stands right next to the guy that I'm playing catch with. And he's just standing there right next to him. We're probably like, 90, 100 feet. We're not real far apart. And for whatever reason, like at that moment, I looked at my partner and I looked at the coach standing next to him. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to hit the coach with the ball. Like I've never thought that in my life, but for whatever reason in that moment, I was like, and so the next throw, I spiked it like 10 feet in front of the guy. And he looks at me, he's like, dude, what do you do? Like, we're professional baseball players, right? Like trying to just throw a ball 90 feet. I'm like, oh, all right, I'm fine. He throws it back. The next one, I start thinking even more, it goes like 10 feet over his head. And now the coach is looking at me like, who is this lunatic? Like, what's going on here? And that was it. Like in that moment, it started and I never really recovered And it's just if you read Rick Ankiel's book, The Phenomenon, which I would recommend anybody who's curious about the yips, I would say that is number one for sure. It's an awesome book.
It's a real thing. The yips.
Yeah. It's a very, very like heartfelt account of his life. But once it sort of affects you, it's hard to get rid of it. It's like a little cancer almost. I mean, it's like, to use a tough analogy, but like it's like a cancer that just sort of like grows inside you, and then once it's there, it's real hard to get rid of it. And so, I tried to sort of fight it for the rest of that season, or the part of the season that I played. But it got to the point where, and the other thing too is everybody's giving you advice, right? Everybody's like, don't think, just throw it, and like everyone has a miracle cure, and
it's not physical. There's no cure. That's the thing.
No cure. No.
You're analyzing every piece of a physical skill that you've done hundreds of thousands, maybe million times in your life.
Millions, yeah.
And now you're thinking of pressure point on your finger and arms, which you never have. And the fact that, I had it. I went through the yips as well as a coach. So very, very different. But I felt I couldn't imagine on your level, it eats you inside, because you can't go work it out with repetitions.
No. Oh, that's such a good point, man, because I think guys like us, everything we've done in our lives, if we've struggled, it's like, I'm going to outwork this problem.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to beat it by just blood, sweat, and tears. Right. And it's the first thing where you can't.
And it eats you inside at a different level.
Yes.
But because we have some really good stuff to get into, but this is, in my opinion, from the outside in, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I didn't know you before it, plays a big piece in the person you are. Again, I said earlier, and your character and what you bring and what you can do for other people. A lot of your coaching that you gave us when you came to us was physical, but the mental lessons, the mental cues that you taught us, I will never forget how much you helped me save my baseball career in my head. It was a simple mental cue, kiss her on the cheek, nothing to do physical. Is that something that you adopted as you grew and went into coaching, was more of a mental approach to things?
Absolutely. And, I think it was something that Coach Verdugo at Hamlin said to me, it's sort of the tail end of my struggle with the yips when I got released, and I was like, I'm going to hang it up. He's like, you may not see it now, but this will make you a better coach. This will come into play in how you coach. And he was totally right. And like you're saying as well, it's like, it gave me so much empathy. And I think it really changed how I looked at each individual player too. I think when you're a young coach and you're like really excited, there's a tendency to think, okay, I have this, I'm going to put a system in place and every guy's going to be the same. And we're just going to roll. Right. And that's not the case. You have humans, right? Like you're coaching human beings, and so everyone thinks differently, different emotions. And it really sort of ingrained that in me that I have to get to know guys and understand how they think. And you can't coach everybody the same way. You can't, like, tough love is not going to work on everybody.
Yep.
And like, try harder, that's not going to work on everybody.
Try harder, dude. Just don't think about it.
Yeah. And I would hear that from so many coaches, and I would think, not that it's, a reflection on them, a negative reflection on them. They just haven't been through it, right? They don't, like, I have the firsthand experience to know, everything that goes into the mental game and how hard you can be on yourself. Now, I think it was a learning curve for me to not go too far in that direction, right? Like, because there are sometimes guys who just need a kick in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. And so I
slam some clipboards.
Yeah. You can't lose that edge completely, right? You can't sort of get too like warm and fuzzy all the time. But it's just it's about looking at each, and I think I use it today as a manager too, right? You understand how people are motivated, and that's sort of always the first place I go when somebody's not performing or we're not, like, they're not getting what I'm trying to communicate. The first thing I think is, okay, how are they approaching it? How are they thinking? Like, what motivates them? What makes them tick? Having been through it myself.
And so So you stopped playing pro ball, but you can throw BP. I've watched you do it. You coach after. You had to have some mental toughness. How did you beat it? What did you do? Not that
Um,
there's a cure for yips, but how did you combat it? Because I
yeah,
watched you with your routine, and it's very methodical.
yeah. I think it's interesting. Even though I've been able to throw like okay, B plus BP is what I always say. Um, it,
First B plus you ever got.
Yeah, right now, come on. The ball never felt the same coming out. Even throwing BP, I never again just sort of threw a ball without thinking. Um, so I would have to sort of constantly tweak the rhythm I'd be in and throwing BP. And just sort of like, I think the hardest part was accepting that it wasn't going to be what it was. Right. Like I'd look at coaches who would just throw money BP all day long and they look so cool doing it. And I'm like, oh man, that guy never thinks about having the yips. Right. But you can't do that. You'll drive yourself crazy if you do that. And
It
so,
really comes up in pressure situations when you're throwing
yeah,
BP to new people for the first time, and then you're
yeah,
but I remember your rhythm every time you get a ball, you bring your hands to your waist, your head would go down, and then you pick up. I remember it every time.
yep, yep. And that was sort of just like, I think it was sort of a series of band-aids to kind of make myself, I knew to be a good coach, I had to throw BP. I didn't have to go out to short, and make a play in the hole. Those days are gone, but I had to at least throw BP to help my players. And I think it's all about just finding that rhythm and finding little tricks that would work for me to sort of just get me through it. And then not beating myself up if I had a rough day out there, because like you've talked about, like that pit in your stomach, you feel worthless, right? You feel just like such a piece of shit.
Your fungo game gets you extra credit, so it makes up for that B plus for BP.
Okay, cool.
Fungo game is fucking
I appreciate that.
swag money on point, short, slow roller in the hole. I sucked at it, but it was
What I was bummed I missed was the fungo competition at the World Series. I saw because Lindsay was in that, right? Didn't he?
yeah. It would have
That's
been nice if we ever made it to the World Series. We could have done it, but whatever.
Yeah,
I guess that's on us. Lindsay's better than both of us.
he is, no doubt. I
He
hope he's
hit the smooth fungo though.
He does.
He's got the swag fungo.
He's got the whole look, man. He's
Yeah.
he's the complete package, if you ask me, as a coach.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, dude, so you go through all that, and then boom, 2011, you come out to Miz. Now,
Yeah.
from our standpoint, we went from 7 wins the year before I got there. We had 20 wins, 21 wins my first 2 years. Then my junior year, we win the conference. We're thinking we're big dicking around, like just thinking we're the shits. We went from nothing to win the conference.
Yeah.
I walk in my senior year, I walk in the weight room, I see this dude, and I always tell people, I'm like, Bennett, you're the all-American dude, right from the outside in. You're very fit, you carry yourself well, you're very educated, very intellectual, you speak very well. So we walk in and there's this dude. Meanwhile, we're 21 years old. All we're thinking about is throwing back beers, partying, and taking BP.
Yeah.
First time I meet you, you're fucking in there running on the treadmill. You got your towel. I'm like, look at Clark. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? You walk over, and we probably weren't an easy group to coach, but as soon as you came over, I was like, this dude's the fucking man. He's gonna help us. Walk me through, what it was like when you first got out there. Battling some of those things, like I said, in pressure situations, the yips can come back, but
Yep.
how you morphed going to coach at a new school for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was nervous. I was really nervous. To me, that was the opportunity, right? Like, and I eventually did get out of coaching, but like even the career that I had in coaching, that was the thing that sort of allowed it all to happen. And working for Coach Egbert, who there's no better, if you're going to be a grad assistant, like there's no better head coach to learn from, to have mentor you. Like I have so much gratitude that I got that job. And I think everything up until that point was what I knew from Coach Verdugo and Hamlin, right? And he's an awesome coach. He and now he's the AD there. He's been a lifelong mentor to me, but I didn't know anything beyond that, right? And I was the head coach at Minneapolis South High School. Everything I did was just Hamlin, right? Like and it worked. And I was lucky that we had just some really good players for those 2 years that I was there, for like an inner city school. And but I didn't know anything beyond that, right? And so going to Miz, that was my first time sort of stepping outside the comfort zone of the coaching philosophy and the system that I knew. and a different part of the country, right? A different conference, like, and I think there's always like, you talk about like sort of the first impressions. There's always that like, hey, are these guys gonna think I'm an idiot? Are they gonna like, you're very, very insecure about that, because I mean, this was literally like a cold application, right? I applied for like, I don't know, 80, 90 college coaching jobs, right? Because I was like, let's see if I can get something. So I had never heard of Misericordia, never heard of Dallas, PA. I had zero connections of any kind. I knew nobody, right? So it was very nerve wracking. But
And you're young enough, so you're close enough in age to still care and want their approval.
yes, oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was 2011, so I was 25. Like you absolutely care about that. You want to be to some degree like one of the guys, right? But so it was definitely, I had to sort of like build up that confidence, right? It didn't happen right away. But then I think what you realize is like baseball is baseball. And like, I mean, you guys are amazing. That's the other thing. Like you and Pat and Slano and everybody who was part of those teams, like, you're now some of my best friends, right? Like you guys were receptive, you were eager to learn. But you did still have that chip on your shoulder from having been like underdogs now to like, on the national stage. So it was, a lot of things came together, a lot of things came together to make it just an incredible experience. I think the other thing too is Coach Egbert gave me this whole other take on recruiting, right? Like it was like, I did not like Coach Verdugo, great recruiter. But we were sort of limited to Minnesota, right? We didn't really go beyond the Twin Cities because it was such a big metro area. And, we get the occasional player from Arizona where he was from, but nothing like the sort of mid-Atlantic coverage that we would have at Miz, right?
You fucked the rest of the GAs, by the way, because you recruited 8 days a week, all day, every day. If we want to take a day off, we couldn't because you set the bar so high.
Coach Edward set that bar. I was just sort of like, executing on it. I mean, it was such a crash course in recruiting and building a program. And like, I think that's, when I tell people like that's the best GA job in the country, I really believe that. And I think it's because you get that experience with recruiting at a completely different level. That like, no matter what program you came from, I don't think that you've experienced anything like that.
And you learn, and we're going to do a separate podcast where we get into your analytics, your approach with baseball, because that's a fucking 2-hour podcast on its own. But I think so for this one, I want to really talk to you about like that experience for me, because I watched you, man. I learned everything from the day you stepped foot there in 2011. I was with you until 2015. I think you left that spring or winter. Yeah. 4 years, watched, studied everything you did. That's what makes me and built that work ethic into my head. There's 0 days off. You got that from him. And you set that tone right away. And I've watched it carry over for you for when you left. But is that something that he preached? I know he did to us as players, is using everything as a learning experience, and it can carry over.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we talk about Coach Egbert, it's like, I think a lot of what inspires us looking at him is just how he goes about his business every day, right? Like he never sat down and said like, hey, I need you to do this and this and this. And like, and you have to work your ass off or else you're gone. Like it was just because he did it, right? Like he set the example and you're just like, I have to live up to that, right? It was, which to me is like the best kind of leadership, right? It's like the leadership that inspires you, not by being told, but by following an example.
Leader, not a boss, they say.
Yeah. Like I was joking the other day with somebody, because a lot of my friends from high school and college went on to business school, right? They got MBAs and that kind of thing. And a lot of people in the tech world too, like they have, MBAs from great schools, and nothing against any of that. But I feel like we got like the equivalent of an MBA doing the GA role that we did, right? But just like the amount we learned in coaching a team, recruiting, managing day-to-day operations of a program, like it is a graduate degree in just like building a business, even though it is a baseball program, right? It's still,
Or you're going to school and getting a degree, getting your grad
yeah,
degree from
yeah,
doubling up.
yeah, exactly. Like it's the best grad school you could ever want.
And that's why I think those grad programs and stuff like that, it prepares you so much, because even your workload, you're like, when you leave and you go take a different job, you're like trying to find stuff to fill those same hours. I remember it was 2013 and I was doing my volunteer year, learning from you, waiting for you to graduate to then go into the GA. And I'm
Yep.
I'm 22. I'm going out with the guys at the bar. It's like 3:30 a.m. I'm just getting home and I hear you fucking getting up and showering at 3:30, going on a run in February outside, and then going into the office at 4:45. And I'm like, what the fuck is this dude doing? And then as soon as you left and it was on me, sweet, I was doing the same shit.
Yeah.
And now I still do that same shit today.
Not now you do it and I don't anymore.
I'm on my way out now. Now it's just trying to figure out how to make a baby sleep.
Yeah, right. Oh,
but
man.
that work ethic, it propelled you and it helped me. So obviously, thank you for that. But so you leave Miz, obviously, you bounce around, you go to another college, you come back, and then you left again. Now, what are you doing now?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, fun journey. So I joined the company where I am now. It's called Lendeavor, in May of 15. So it's been about almost 5.5 years. And this was a very typical like Silicon Valley startup story. It was two good buddies of mine. Went to high school together. One of the founders, James Bachmeyer, was my best man at my wedding. We played baseball and handling together. So Dan and James, the two founders, started this company out of a 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. I joined, let's see, it was 6 people when I joined. So it was still pretty small, but they did have an office and they had raised a little bit of money. I sort of hit a point with coaching where I financially it was getting really hard. I didn't see it getting to where I needed to be. I was 29. I was at Midland in Nebraska, which was a good program, but I didn't see myself getting that head coaching job or getting to a point of any kind of financial stability anytime soon. And there was a lot of frustration around that because it's hard when you have a passion, right? The thing that like you think you're put here to do, which I believe that was coaching for me, but I just felt like it was time to make a change. And I was very curious about the business world too. I was like we talked earlier, is everything I learned in coaching going to translate? Like, is that a, possibility? And so I was really lucky. The guys welcomed me aboard and we've grown the company a lot. What we do is real simple. We do loans. We provide loans to healthcare practices. So like if you're a dentist and you want to buy a practice, it's going to cost you anywhere from like, a few $100,000 to a few million, depending on how big the practice is. And we would make that loan to you, right? So it's banks do the same thing, but we do it. It's all online. It's fast and easy, right? Similar to like a Rocket Mortgage does with a mortgage. We do that for practice loans. So dentists, veterinarians, optometrists, right? Those are our customers. And so it's a very random niche. What's that?
About physical therapists.
Not as much. Mostly what we do is dental. Honestly, like 90% of what we do is dental practices. Dental practices have historically had like the lowest loss rates you can imagine, right? Even through like a recession or a tough economy. So as a lender, it's like a good industry to be in. But now the company is, 80, 85 people. We opened an office here in Columbus, Ohio, which is why I'm here. We left San Francisco about a year ago. So it's been an amazing journey, right? It's doing something very, very unique niche that I don't think any of us thought we'd be in, right? Like lending money to dentists, but the joy has been in the building, right? The building of the company and the hiring of great people. We've gotten some just incredible people to join us where we're like pinching ourselves like these people want to come work with us, which I'm sure you've experienced too, and building No Windy Sleeves and Fast Switch and everything you're doing. Like it's an exciting thing when you get those people on board, right?
There's that competitive juice that you don't get from coaching. It's always what's next. How can I get better? How can I scale? I'm sure that's what it is with you. And then it's just, and you even said it can cause some problems having that competitive nature with a startup when you don't shut off.
You don't shut off. No.
how it can definitely challenge your It's very good to have a very supportive wife and family,
Yes.
because it can be challenging because all we know is go, 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 go. And
It's
it's
so hard. It's so hard. Well, and we were talking, I guess it was a few months back about this, but like it's forced me to completely rethink competition and what my competitive advantage is going to be, right? Because like you said, for so many years, it's like I'm going to outwork you, right? I have the confidence of knowing I'm going to win because I'm going to work more hours. I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to get up earlier. I'm going to stay up later.
boom,
Um,
you have your baby.
yeah, right. And then everything changes. And then everything changes. And it's very disorienting to feel like, okay, that advantage I had, which I felt like I could control, or I can just outwork you. That's completely in my control. Um, and once we had our daughter, it was like, as you're experiencing that, like you can't do that. You have to completely rethink how you're going to win and how you're going to beat people.
And it fucks
Um,
with your head a little bit.
it does. It really does. It really does. Because now it's like, okay, I can't outwork everybody, so I have to just be better. I have to be more efficient. I have to make better decisions. I have to get leverage from the people that work for me. You have to just excel in those areas because the quantity over quality is no longer an option,
Did you
really.
find it, which I'm struggling with, where you were always the person there the most, you were always working the hardest, you were always putting the most hours. Now you have guys that work for you and you're not there, and you just sit back and you think about what's going through their head, like, oh, he's just sitting at home, you know.
Oh, it's yeah, absolutely. It's terrible. Your mind goes to that place all the time. Um, to be honest with you, I haven't totally gotten over that. I still have a little bit of that where, I mean, even now I've taken this, this leave of absence dealing with some health issues where I still have some of that guilt, right? Like, and the guys have been incredible. They're like, dude, take all the time you need. We got it. Literally just whenever you're ready to come back, but don't even think about work. I mean, it's, the best thing an employer could ever give you as a gift dealing with this, right? But I still have the guilt, even though they've told me not to worry about it. I still worry about it.
Made me that because I thought it was going to go away eventually, but clearly it doesn't. But I always say too, when you're at home and you're taking care of your child, and I love my daughter, and I know you love yours. It's probably I sometimes I'll go to work for 12 hours, a hard day. I'm like, it's probably still easier than taking care of a child alone for 12. Like when you come
Yeah,
home from work, it's harder than anything that you did at work,
way harder, way more exhausting, way more intense. Uh,
right?
you're on every second.
So you're like,
Yeah,
I'm jealous that you're over there training. It's like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
hard to get, but
yeah.
not to get too far off with that, but that's something that I've dealt with, and I leaned on you a lot throughout Ashley's pregnancy because you're always someone that I looked up to, and I thought we were very similar people. So talking to you about your experience and the advice you gave me, I mean, you told me straight up, you're like, you can't do what you did before. Get that through your head now because it can have some issues on what you and Ashley. So
Yep,
just start to prepare for it, and having that mindset going in helped me a lot. And it might not
that's
be
awesome.
something that you didn't have, but that helped me. It made
Yeah,
me in the back of my mind think, I have to go home. It's 5 o'clock. I told her I'd be home at 5. I can't stay here till
yeah,
6:30 doing extra stuff.
yeah,
And making peace with it was
yep,
something I was able to do months before it happened
yep.
because
Well,
of your support.
yeah, I mean, I knew we were wired the same way, right? Like I was like, we're so similar. I was like, if I went through this, I'm almost certain he's going to go through it. And I think the thing I would add to, not to be too negative about it, like most of that's in your own head. That's the other thing I've learned too, right? When you're imagining that people are being, grumbling about you being home with your kid, like they're probably not. Like they're almost definitely not, right? Like
They don't care about
that,
you that much.
no, that's very, yeah, it's very self-centered to think that they care that much about you. So that's the one thing where I've made some progress is like reminding myself, like, dude, that's in your, nobody's questioning your work ethic.
They're
Right? Like,
probably like, Bennett's not in the office today, dude. We're chilling. So you mentioned your leave of absence. Again, you've had an amazing journey to where you are, been tested many times. This is probably, the number one, test for you.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you're going through some stuff that, I don't, my deepest regards and sympathy and, for and empathy for you. Um, what are you going through? How are
yeah,
you feeling? What's going on?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've, one of the joys of this ordeal has been sharing it, because I do think, there's a lot that people can learn from my journey and going through this. So basically, the quick story here, about a year ago, a little more than a year now.
Sorry to interrupt. If I block my video, it's because I'm crying. So I'm an emotional now.
I'm good, man. I've got good news. You don't need to cry anymore. No, I had, so actually it was probably a year and a half actually when it first started. I thought I had hemorrhoids, right? And I'm gonna to sort of set the stage. I'm pretty transparent about like my symptoms and whatnot, and people get a little bit like cringy about it. But I when I started blogging about this experience, I wanted it to be very real, like, and just like, this is what I'm going through, right? Because I think one of the big problems about cancer and colorectal cancer in particular, is that we don't talk about stuff because we're like embarrassed, right? I think testicular cancer probably very similar among guys, especially young guys like us who don't like to talk about stuff like that. So I thought I had hemorrhoids, right? And I went to my doctor in San Francisco. They gave me all these hemorrhoid remedies, right? Like creams and take the sitz baths and stuff. And so I did that for a few months, and it wasn't really getting better. So I went back, and they referred me to a colorectal surgeon in San Francisco. So I went to see him, and he checked out my butt, and he's like, dude, I don't think you have hemorrhoids. I think this is an anal fistula, which is basically like, it's like a little tunnel that grows, like an abscess that turns into a tunnel. And the only way to fix it is surgery. And so I kind of put that off for a while, right? Because he's like, look, this is not life threatening. Like, you should get this surgery done, but it's not going to kill you tomorrow, right? So it was August of last year when I finally had the surgery. A fistulotomy is what they call it, where they basically like cut open the tunnel so it's exposed and then it can heal, right? So I had the surgery. All the pain was gone. Like, I didn't have the pressure. Like, if you had hemorrhoids, there's like a lot of pressure down there. So all those symptoms were gone. But at the risk of being a little bit gross here, like I had this mucus or pus that kept happening, right? Like, it kept coming, and that was one of the symptoms I'd had before. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I would think this would be healed by now.
And you weren't sharing this with anyone, because this was when we were hanging out. This right around my wedding.
Yeah. No, I was embarrassed. I was like, this is disgusting, right? Like, who has like mucus coming out of their ass? It's really gross. And I knew, I did know things like, if you have blood in your stools, like, that's a sign of colon cancer, but I didn't have that, right? I didn't have like stomach pain or any of the really textbook symptoms of colon cancer. I had none of that. So we moved to Columbus. Life was really busy. I just kind of dealt with it. I was like, it's gross, but it doesn't hurt, right? Like, I'm not in pain. So then in December of last year, I was back in San Francisco for work, and I managed to get an appointment with my surgeon there, the colorectal guy I was seeing. And, he did an exam, but not like a full exam under anesthesia, because if they're really going to check you out, they have to put you under, because it's painful. But he looked, and he's like, it's possible that this fistula didn't heal properly. Like, that can happen sometimes, where even though we do the surgery, it doesn't heal perfectly, and there can be like an opening. Maybe the mucus can sort of collect in there, and that could be it, right? He's like, I don't know for sure, because I have to, really put you under to do a full exam. But he's like, odds are you have to have like basically a follow-up surgery, right? And sort of just like, fix whatever didn't heal properly. And so, I was like, okay, is this like urgent? He's like, no, I mean, like, it's uncomfortable for you clearly to have this really gross stuff coming out of your ass. But like, he's like, I don't think you have to get it done tomorrow. So I was like, okay, can you recommend a surgeon in Ohio? I'm not gonna come back out to San Francisco anytime soon. And so he recommended a guy who's at University Hospitals, which is Case Western Reserve up in Cleveland. He had been at the Cleveland Clinic, but then took over the colorectal division at University Hospitals, which is two of the best hospitals in the country. And so this surgeon, Dr. Dietz, had basically been a mentor to my guy in San Francisco, right? They had worked together, but he had been one of the guys that had sort of taught him as he was coming up. And he's like, he's one of the best in the country. He's a leader in the field. Go see him. He's great. So get back to Ohio, March of this year. I call him up, I get an appointment, and then COVID happens. And, honestly, it was just sort of an excuse for me to sort of put it off, right? Because I'm like, well, nobody's really going to the doctor unless it's life threatening. Like, I'll just wait till the dust settles from whatever this is going to be. And so I never went. And I just, for a lot more months, I just kept sort of dealing with it, right? So finally, in July, there was a voice inside my head that was like, you need to go see somebody, right? Like something was telling me that it wasn't right. And I think that's been one of the themes I've had in like writing the blog and everything, is like, and just talking to people is like, you know when something's not right with your body. You can read about all the symptoms you want, like on WebMD or whatever, but
Yeah.
like there's that voice inside you that's telling you something's not right. And so I finally went to go see Dr. Dietz, and he does a little exam, but he's like, again, I can't really tell without putting you under, but why don't you go get a colonoscopy, right? That he was like, before we do anything else, let's just make sure, go get a colonoscopy. Maybe you have Crohn's disease or something, right? Those are some of the things, or some other kind of IBD. So like, it was really just a precautionary thing, right? Like I had a grandpa who had colon cancer in his 80s, but that's not really significant in terms of, early onset risk. Unless you've had somebody in your family under 50, they don't really think of that as a increased risk factor. So went to get the colonoscopy. That was August 3rd of this year, and they removed from my rectum a 4-centimeter polyp, which is really big. Like that's like an inch and a half or whatever. I mean, it's very significant. And so it took a few days to get the pathology, but as we sort of knew at that moment, it did turn out to be cancerous. So that just sort of set in motion like this whole process. And rectal cancer is like, it's absolutely crazy when you look at the stats right now among young people. It's just like it's going up so quickly. I mean, colon cancer is as well, but in particular, rectal cancer is like really on the rise. So it's like basically you gotta do the scans to make sure it hasn't spread. I was very lucky. Lungs and liver were okay. So then it came down to basically surgery. So the surgery I had was a very difficult one. And this is where, like, you think things happen for a reason. Like, I'm just so grateful that Dr. Dietz was my surgeon, because he is like literally one of the leaders in the country in rectal cancer surgery. And this tumor was like a centimeter from like the end of the rectum, which is not much room to work with, right? And I talked to other surgeons, other places, who were like, we're just going to take the whole rectum out. You're going to have a colostomy bag for your whole life, and that's like the only option. But Dr. Dietz was able to do it such that I do have an ileostomy bag right now, but it's going to be temporary. It's only going to be 3 months, and then once the rectum can heal, where he had to cut out a big chunk for the tumor and reconnect it. Once that heals, he can take the bag off. He can sort of reconnect my intestines, and I can go back to having basically a normal digestive tract. And I'm found out I won't need chemo or radiation, which is a huge huge pleasant surprise. We really thought I was going to, just based on like the size of the tumor and stuff, but all the lymph nodes were good. So just tons and tons of blessings throughout this. But I think the big takeaway for me is, and what I've tried to share with people is, I'm very, very lucky that we caught it when we did. I did go in to see somebody, which I sort of like shudder to think, what if I hadn't, but also on the flip side, I did kind of drag my feet, for a long time, you know, from my first symptom to the time I actually got a colonoscopy, it's a long time. And so it's sort of like it's a double-edged sword. And I think what I just want people to take away is like, listen to your body. Don't be afraid to talk about symptoms, even if they're, uncomfortable or a little bit like awkward or embarrassing. Like you got to go see somebody and talk about that stuff. And I think it also made me think a lot about just how am I taking care of my body, right? Because there's no proof that things like red meat or fried food or stuff like that can give you colon cancer, but there are a lot of sort of like compelling studies that say there's an association there, even if there's no proof that it causes cancer. Like a lot of people think that like that your gut health and the health of your colon is related to sort of how healthy are you as a person, right? And so I was making a lot of sacrifices. I was really slipping on working out. I was starting to eat not so great quantity and quality of food. And I wouldn't say that I certainly wasn't obese. I wasn't being like horrible to my body, but it was a wake up call for sure. So yeah, that's the story, man. And so I'm sort of just now getting the hang of like having the bag and trying to continue to heal from the surgery. And
how much did your mindset change when you came out of when they removed it the first time and they told you, you have this and it's something we're gonna have to start to do? What was going through your mind? Did those competitive juices kick in where you're like, whatever we have to do, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing you say that, because like when I got the call with the word that it was cancer, I called Alexis, my wife, right away, and we had some tears, definitely, but the thing that I told her is like, we don't lose. In our family, we don't lose. We're not going to lose. And I don't know, like you said, the competitive juices, I think that's just like the refrain that I had, like immediately, it's like, let's fucking go. Right. Like, it's like you get punched in the face. And
well, I say you've been so optimistic throughout it, like, and that's why I kept touching on throughout this, you building you as a person and dealing with adversity, because speaking to you about this whole thing, you've been so positive and optimistic about it. Don't worry, I'm gonna beat the shit out of this. You're always finding the good things to look at, and I feel like it could be so easy just to shut down and feel sorry, or put blame on yourself. And you have been so positive again and trying to share it to help other people, and that's very admirable and very motivating to myself. And I know a lot of the other guys, players that I've talked to, but that's a choice and a decision that you have to make every day, but that's because of the person that you are. And
I appreciate it, man. And I mean, you were like my first phone call after that, right? Like, as you've inspired me so much. And like, I was telling you when I was in the hospital, like watching a lot of your videos, getting jacked up, because like I needed that inspiration to get through the recovery, which was real tough. But I think one of the things I've written about too is that I have had moments where I've felt sorry for myself, right? Like those waves do come where you're just like, you're just like, oh, why me? Like, what? This is such bullshit. Like, what,
yeah.
And I would be very ashamed of those thoughts at first. And then I sort of learned to be like, all right, like those waves are going to come mentally. And I just have to sort of, acknowledge it and then move on. Right. And there's no point in beating yourself up. Because I think, we're the kind of people that want to be perfect mentally, right? You don't want to, you want to be like, I'm going to be positive 100% of the time. I'm going to be a warrior. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself ever. Right. And that's maybe not realistic, right? Like, you're a human, you're going to have those thoughts of just like wanting to just, just cry, or just like, sit down and just like, hold your head in your hands, and like that's going to happen, right? And the key is, can you respond quickly to it, right? Like, can you not wallow in it for like, a week? Can you make it like 5 minutes and then you move on? And that's been the big learning for me.
And so just thinking about some of that stuff too. You always used to say, imagine the worst possible. You used to say when you go to the plate, Todd, what's the worst thing that could happen to you when you go to the plate?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I'll strike out looking and be embarrassed. Like, you could die.
You could
But
die.
guess what? You're not going to, Todd. So who
Yeah.
cares if you strike out looking, right?
Yeah.
You're always looking at the one step ahead of the worst
Yeah.
possible outcome and picking the
Yeah.
positives of it. Okay, I struck out looking, but I didn't die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for you, and this is like, okay, it's this, but we got this good news, so I'm gonna take that and run with it. And that's your fucking mindset, dude. And that is what is gets me fired up about it and gets me motivated. And I shared your story and your text that you were sending me in there with my team, and my other buddy's very emotional. He's in tears. He's like, that is so fucking awesome. He's such a good dude. And I don't know if Brad reached out to you, but he asked me for your number. My other groomsman.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because it's watching what you're going through and having you share it is, again, very motivating and admirable for people, because I tell people I wouldn't expect anything different from you, though. For me, it's like, it's just Bennett being Bennett, dude, So, but
I mean, I can't even put into words, man, how much you've helped me to get through this. So I like, try not to get emotional, but like I mean, having you, just knowing you're there, throughout this has just been like, I mean, you're like a brother to me. I tell you all the time. It's just like, I don't think I would have made it through without that support, man.
appreciate it, man. It's
Yeah.
funny how it all comes full circle. You were my coach. We worked together, best friends. You're one of my groomsmen at my wedding. Here's just another step along the way that we get through together. So I
Yeah.
always tell people, and with our No Windy Sleeves in the movement, is that if you can just help and make the smallest difference in anyone's life, one person, that's a win for the day. And you sharing your story, you're winning every single day, whether you feel like it for yourself or not. Your purpose of always wanting to help people and be a leader and a coach, when you share your story and what you're going through, you are helping at least one person a day. That's a win for you as a person every single day. So even I never give you advice, usually the other way around. My advice to you is, if ever you ever do have those waves that you're feeling sorry, just realize that you are helping so many people by doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. And that's one of the things that I've admired so much about No Windy Sleeves is just how you positioned it, of just helping people, and not being so prescriptive about this. This is exactly what you have to do and how we're going to help you, but just finding any ways to help people, right? I feel like that's sort of at the core of your mission, and it really comes through in everything you guys do. And yeah, I think that's unique. I think that's a big part of why you're having so much success, is that really resonates with people, is that it's a genuine, unselfish, just sort of like, I don't know, like this a very heartfelt message that you guys are putting out there of helping people, and whether it's fitness or how they eat or their business, like all the different sort of mediums that you talk about. Because everyone's different, right? It's like we were talking about, the players. Every player is different. I'm sure every client, every person you train, every person you mentor has different needs and is trying to accomplish different things. And you guys are so open about how you do it. And I think that's.
And we were looking at the verticals. It's funny you say that, because we're like, okay, we have physical therapy in Cairo, we have the gym, we have supplements, we have clothes, and I was like, you guys, all we care about is helping people. Like,
Yeah.
So if we can do a shotgun stupid video and it makes someone laugh who's having a bad day, that's helping. I was like, I don't care how we do it. We had a team meeting about it last 2 nights ago, because we're getting more into supplement line and clothing. And I was like, we can't forget our first mission. Those are add-ons to what our company is. We are moving to just help people in any humanly way possible. We offer supplements, we offer clothes, we offer training, we offer, like that, not losing sight of who we are. And I feel like, shit, if you didn't have your own startup business that you're blowing up, I'd want you right on board with us. That's why I wanted to bring you on, though. These podcasts are made to help people. And shit, we could go on for 4 hours. I mean, we have a whole nother numbered baseball mental part of it, but I wanted people to get to know you, your story, and see how you are battling through everything mentally. And again, all those things that you've battled throughout your life, the yips, the changing schools, dealing with coaching and finances, it's prepared you for this. And everything in life that you learned has prepared you to beat the fuck out of this thing. And that's why you were someone we've been trying to link up to get you on here for a long time.
I've been so excited, man. I'm real grateful to have a chance to be on here, and it's an honor, dude. It really is.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on, taking time away from the wife and the baby girl, who I hope both are doing extremely well. I miss them both.
They're doing great.
And
They've
they
been
look
the whole
so,
time.
she's getting old so fast.
It's crazy, man. Almost 2.
Holy, you make me feel old. But
Nuts.
thank you, dude. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming on and being so open and
Yeah.
transparent with people. I hope everyone that's listening got a lot out of this and lets it resonate with them. But
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
of course, brother, don't forget to fuel your body and fill your sleeves, baby.
Oh.
All right. I'm just